good news, this has arrived just in time for me to find that. Let's get building.
I feel electric. I sense my skin in between the waves. I am human. I am criminal, but I feel alive here in my heart. Yeah.
Yes, I know the turbos are missing, but as you've seen, they're underway. We're getting there. They're just not quite ready yet. But don't forget, we can actually put that engine in the car now and put the turbos on later. It's not my preferred option, but we're done. Don't forget the inlet manifold needs to be put on when the engine's in the car as well, because all of the aluminum laces through the inlet manifold, and you can't really do it when the inlet manifold's on the engine. So we're there. Well, except we're not, because this engine bay is an absolute f***ing war zone. I mean, if I was going to be really manchbag, I'd just chuck it in, clean a few things up, but this is not good. And really, I did say I was going to try and keep some of the JDM heritage of this car, but that paint, it's not me. I'd rather this all just went back to black, and I think we're going to put it back to black. The problem is I can't put it back to black because everything's in the f***ing way. So, despite the fact that I have fully stripped all this engine out and got the utter fear, because I was like, where does everything go? I'm now going to have to compound that by taking its other end out of the engine bay so I can paint it. Is this a wise move? Well, yeah, because I definitely don't want to put the engine in, make sure it all works, and then go, I really wish I'd painted that engine bay. And whilst that might be okay in Japan, that's going to be a disaster in the UK. So this is all coming out. See, when this engine goes back in and nothing works right, this is why. Don't flick my nozzle.
It's a bit away with that.
We are going to have issues here. Let's get her out from the corner of the room. something very familiar about all of this. Yeah. Now, let's get into a trans debate, only this one will not result in a fight. So, the transmission. As stated before, I have got a bit of a debate as to whether or not it needs to come out to paint the engine bay. Now, having looked at the engine bay, I think this sparkle nonsense only goes down so far. You can kind of see the line where they've gave up. But the problem with that is, I need to paint it so that it looks good, i.e. we need to match the black to black. So I think I'm probably going to take that paint line down to, let's say about here. So the trans is going to be clearly in the way. But the other reason I want to take it out is a bit more kind of left field. Because just behind the trans, obviously it's sitting a bit low right now, you will see scratch mark corresponding to every single bolt where the bell housing goes through. Now, as I've said before, it is a bloody tight engine bay. Realistically, to get the bolts out for the bell housing, it's going to bugger the bulkhead. So I'm going to probably put the engine in the box in as one. That's going to be my measure to prevent that happening, especially with a nice clean engine bay. So the other reason I want to take the box out is because of this. Now, I noticed this earlier on when I was kind of rummaging about underneath, but I've only just taken this guy out and there seems to be fluid leaking. It wasn't doing that before. I don't really fancy it doing from this point onwards, so I'm going to take it out and just see. I've got a funny feeling it might be overflow from when I filled the box up through the top of the transmission tower, but similarly it might not be, so worth an inspect. Lastly, there's a plug kicking about somewhere under here that I forgot to plug in, so let's just take this out. During my tenure removing all of the nonsense in this engine bay, which we're still not done on yet, you'll see that the clutch line's still kicking about. That's because, you look up here, I forgot to undo it whilst doing everything else. And it's bloody captive in that little bracket. So I was kind of humming and hawing, going, how am I going to do this? I'm going to have one last crack at it with a pair of spanners. If that doesn't work, it's just getting cut and replaced, which is a bit annoying, but never mind. But yeah, that's really kind of the last wee bit. There's a couple of bits of loom, a couple of bits of aircon nonsense to deal with, but other than that, the engine bay is more or less clean. Now, the prep stage is going to be interesting because we have many different coats of paint on here. Now, I'm not a painter by any stretch of the imagination, but all we're going to do is 2K black, flat black. Engine bay can be black because it's black already. Toyota never really bothered putting fancy colours under here on the, well, certainly in imports anyway. So I'm happy enough to go black. It's fairly OEM. Just gets rid of all the sparkle stuff, but it's all going to have to come off. All the sparkle stuff's flaking already. I don't have a concept on how well this has been done, but I suspect not very. So there's no point painting the top of the blue sparkly shit because it's probably all going to flake anyway. But before that, I've also got one last debate. As you can see, this front crash bar on the bumper, I don't know what the flying f happened here, but it quite clearly looks like it's had some form of body kit on it in the past, and the previous owners just chopped out gaps for it. Either that, or it's maybe some form of like weight reduction. Don't know. But it looks like it's been done with a gas torch really, really badly. Now, I'm not going to bother replacing this. It's never seen, and it is a pretty heavy thing. So I'm going to keep with the JDM this and just kind of dress some of these cuts back and repaint it black as well, just to keep the rust off. So probably will need to take it off to do that, but we'll burn that bridge when we cross it. Anyway, that's probably enough waffle for the moment. Let's get the box out. If you think these prop bolts are coming off surprisingly easy, that's because I've done what we call in the industry as an Ed China on them. I know Ed China's a beloved TV personality of many, but to Ed China a bolt means that off camera you do the thing that he claims WD-40 does. You see, no bolt in an old car, especially a 30-year-old one, comes off without some amount of labour, WD-40, pain and misery. Every time old Edward gives it a go, it seems to just be like, bit of WD-40 and off it comes. No matter how old, rusty and shit the car is. As it happens, this car isn't particularly old, rusty and shit, and these did come off. A mild amount of swearing if I'm being honest, but they're not loose. I've pre-cracked them. Or I've Ed China'd them, depending on what way you want it.
Love you with the feeling deep within my heart. You're so true. You know I got the fever, but loving you too much, feel like a fool.
As you can see, most of the paint has already started to flake off with worrying efficiency, which does tell me this has been the right move. I have taped the bottom of the windscreen, having taken the scuttle panel off, out of complete and absolute fear that I crack, chip or do something to it, because these are not going to be an easy thing to get. And we are now more or less ready to start the big wiry wheel. Also, if you're ever working on a car and you can't be arsed taking out all the loom bag.
Not easy, another loom bag.
I know, I need many loom bags. I don't know what to do with this. We might actually go on a wee venture mission and see if we can get that out from the back.
Yeah.
Feeling adventurous? Yeah. But something tells me it's not going to be that simple.
I don't know, it might.
Well, we've got the wheels back on, we've got all the inners off. There's even loom that pokes through here, which is now tucked up there, that I've pulled out just to give us a clear bloody run of it. There's wires everywhere in this car. It's for a car that is 30 years old, there's just a staggering amount of electronics involved here. But it's all out, so let's do our final prep and then start paint.
Jesus Christ.
So Captain smugface about his imported dry state, clearly no rust Supra isn't so smug anymore because, well, here's where we got to so far. As you can see, my initial thoughts about this metal flaky nonsense coming off quite easily has been a bit of a bum steer. There are sections in this that have just like fallen off. For example, all along here, and amongst all the cornery bits where it's just been laid on far too thick and it's crumbled. That's all. To be fair, it's coming off okay with a wire brush. But, holes, rust. This is the only bit that I've found, right? And the context, I've had to take a lot of things out the way to find this, and of all the other things that I've taken out the way, there's not been rust. So, in the big scheme of things, this isn't a problem. I mean, there's not even been sheared bolts, so this is just a localised issue. The solution is going to obviously be chop it out and weld new bits in, which is annoying because I was wanting to move from here straight onto paint. But, you know, sometimes you just got to play the cards you're dealt. Anyway, what I have noticed though, and what you've probably observed while I've been doing all this sanding is, this bad boy is in no way, shape or form stock. All of the seams, as you can see, have been stitch welded, which is an upgrade, obviously, if you're building a race car. Not a fan of it myself, but obviously when the chassis is spot welded, adding additional stitch welds puts in a bit of rigidity, and it's been fairly comprehensively done. There's like every seam I can find in the engine bay has stitched. The other points to note are on the outside, which you may have noticed earlier on when we were dossing about here. Welded up, welded up, welded up, welded up, additional plates. So when they've originally painted the engine bay, clearly they went to town and went, right, let's put in much, much more stiffness and get the welder out and go crazy, which is respectable, but the car's a bit of a confusing one for me, right? Because obviously I've got no history of what it did in Japan short of landing at an auction when I bought it, but somebody's put some proper effort into this. This is an actual built car that they've used to drift. It's not just been like welded diff and away we go. That's some proper money spent in it. And the weird thing for me is, it doesn't have battle scars, right? Which means one of two things. Somebody spent a whole lot of time and effort building a drift car, spun out in the first corner and went, ooh, I am absolutely not drifting anymore. This isn't for me, sell it. Or the other thing, somebody that has been monumentally talented at drifting has never once had an off on this, bumped, twanged, or done anything to it because it's straight. But it's a built drift car and it's been used for drifting, so don't know. Odd, a mystery. It doesn't matter because at this point this is its next generation, its next phase of life. And that will now include welding, clearly. Anyway, oh, and also, I completely buried the lead earlier on. Wheels, as you can see, fronts and rears, these are 18 by 10s in XXR 52, whatever they are flavour. Basically a BBS LM rip-off, but oh, they look good, they look good. And earlier on I would have made a bigger deal about fitting them had I not been wanting to peg on and actually do something with this car, and completely forgot all about speaking about them. But they're a bit wide for the front, which I can't demonstrate now because I took the wings off, but they are far too wide for the front, so I've got a set of 8s or 8.5s that I'm going to do a staggered set with, but this is now clearly way down the line, so sneak peek, that's what the wheels are going to be. We'll come back to this much later. So, right, find me my welder. Pour a drink out. We have another fallen comrade. This time it's Black & Decker who has suffered at the hands of the wire wheel. An autopsy will naturally follow to see just exactly how much of a murder this has been. Bow our heads, pay our respects, another angle grinder has died. It is a time of mourning. No, I tell a lie. 1:30, let's go on with it. Let's see how long it takes you to die. I have the furry finger syndrome. Those wire wheels are horrific. They are very, very vibraty, and when you do an entire engine bay, you need to take a lot of breaks. To clarify what I mean by a lot of breaks, I have done 3 deck corrector episodes in the ramp in the time that it's taken to do all of this. The power of creative editing means that you've kind of seen it all meshed together, but believe me, this is a time deficit in comparison to all other projects. But this is going to change because now that it's ready for paint, the next episode is going to be a substantial amount of paint, and we're going to do a bit of a deep dive on it because up until now there's been 0 paint activities on Tools and Track. I've farmed it out, but we're going to actually have a crack at it again. So we're going to have some top tips, we're going to have some, how-tos, and I'm probably going to make an absolute cod's arse of it. But at least I'll have had a go, and if it all goes horribly wrong, I'll just take it back to where it is just now and find somebody else to do it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with this. This is, I know, not the project I said it was going to be, but it will be eventually once we get it back to a bare, nice platform to start modifying. That thing up there is going to go in, hopefully. And after that, we can actually start looking at some proper tuning on a forced engine. So if that's something you're up for, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button, because you know they made me grow. And if you really want to support a bit more than that, you'll notice there's no ads through this entire episode. That's purely funded by patreon.com/toolsandtrack, which also pays for the low cost in the back, which I promise at some point, once this is dealt with, I will get back onto. It's obviously going to get finished, I've just got a bit of life in the way. And that's, a point. If life gets in the way, don't give up, just deal with it, then get back onto your projects. And on that sage word of wisdom, bid you farewell. Drive safe, guys.